Okay, so we know PolyNome can be used for very simple clicks. It's very easy and intuitive to use. I want to show you how you can do something a little bit more complicated with it. I'm going to program Frank Zappa's The Black Page into PolyNome. And we'll do this in such a way that it's useful for working on this piece of music. So I'm going to show you how to program in the first two bars. So I have a version of a score from The Black Page that I found on the internet. And we're going to program in bar 1. So I'm going to tap on the rhythm view and clear, and it's in 4/4, but I'm going to set the time signature to 1/4, and that way I'll be able to tell when I've filled up each beat. So if we look at the score here, I'm going to ignore the quarter notes on the hi-hat and we'll put those in metronome 2. So I'm just going to enter the rhythm for the snare and kick part in bar 1. So we start off with a quarter note, and then we have an eighth note divided into 4, so I'll choose the eighth note option and then number 4, and then we have an eighth note on its own. You can see that's filled up beat 2. So there's two different ways I could do beat 3. I could enter a 16th note divided into 2, followed by a single 16th note, followed by an eighth note, or I could have put in, for example, a quarter note split into 8, and I could put the rests in when we had the sounds, but I'll demonstrate that later. And then finally, for the final beat, I'm going to put a 16th note rest where that hi-hat happens. And then we have a eighth note roll, so I'm just going to put that divided into 7, so we get a kind of roll sound. And then finally we have the last 16th note on the kick, and you'll see that it says we filled 4 bars of 1/4, which is also 1 bar of 4/4. So that's the rhythm for bar 1 of the Black Page. So I'll hit done, then I'll click on where it says change sounds, and now we want to enter the kick and snare part here. So on line 1 I'm going to enter a snare, and then snare, snare, kick, kick, snare. And then that first note is going to be on the hi-hat, so I'm just going to put a rest, and we'll let the other metronome take care of that. And then we have a snare, and another snare, and a kick. And then here I put a rest where that hi-hat note is, so I just want to enter snare on here for a roll, but I'm going to do that in a different way. I'm going to scroll along and put a kick on that last note, and then I'm going to click onto line 2, and scroll along, and I'm going to put the snare roll in here and then put a rest at the end. And the reason I did that is on this main page I'm going to change the volume of line 2 so that that snare roll is a little bit quieter than the other snare and kick hits. And then I'm going to hit the 2 metronomes button and enter just a bar of quarter notes and put a closed hi-hat sound for all of those. So that takes care of the closed hi-hats in this bar. The tempo is around 60 beats a minute, and I want this to just play once. So this is what the first bar of the Black Page sounds like, approximately. So what I would do then is save this by clicking the disk icon at the top. So if I want to enter bar 2, what I would do is click on the trash icon above metronome 1 and clear metronome 1. And you'll see that the disk icon on the top right now has an asterisk to tell us that there are unsaved changes. So I'll tap that and save as Black Page 2. So I'm not overwriting the one that we've just saved. So then I'll tap in metronome 1 to add a rhythm. So this time the first eighth note is divided into 3, and then we have an eighth note on its own. Now the second eighth note is divided into 3, but there's a rest in the middle. Now you can't enter that rhythm in the PolyNome rhythm entry, but what I'm going to do is just divide it into 3, and we'll use the sounds to enter a rest on the middle note. And then we have an eighth note roll, so I'm going to use the 7 again for that. And then finally we have 5/2 beats, so I'm going to choose the half note and enter 5. And then we'll hit done, and then let's enter the sounds for this. So we have kick, kick, snare, and then a kick on the eighth note, and then we have a kick, rest, kick. So that's where I entered all of the 3 notes of the triplet, but we've used a rest in the sounds. And then we have this snare roll, so again I'm going to put that on line 2. And then on line 1, for those notes at the end, we're going to have a rest on the first of the 5, and then we've got a descending tom line. So I'm going to use 2 tom sounds to represent that. And that is our second bar. Now, this will play back. You see we haven't filled to the end of the bar with the line 2. What I'm going to do is at the bottom, the reset option, fill cycle with rests. And that means that it won't start to loop sounds if we haven't filled the entire bar. So this is what bar 2 of the black page sounds like. So what I would do is tap the disk icon and update current preset. So now we've saved bar 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of the rest of the bars in the black page. Okay, so I went ahead and created all those bars of rhythm and labeled them BP1, BP2, etc. for each bar. And then I created a playlist. So the playlist icon is the top left of the presets page. I called the playlist black page and then I added each bar into this playlist. Now some of them are repeats. For example, bar 16 is just the same as bar 1 and bar 17 is the same as bar 2. So I just dragged those bars in again. And I basically put the whole of the black page in here. It's 1 rep for each bar. And then at the bottom in the playlist controls, I set them to auto advance and play when advancing. So that means it will play through each of these in order. So if I tap on the first one, and we can change the tempo by clicking this arrow at the top right. We can lock the tempo and choose whatever tempo we want this to play at. So one of the great things about this is if you wanted to work on just a certain bar of this, for example, bar 3, you could just tap on bar 3 to load it and then scroll across here and we can tap where it says play once. We can set that to loop and we can just practice this particular bar on a loop. And if you wanted to change the tempo to work on it slowly, you can do that. And if you're kind of sick in the head, you could change what metronome 2 is playing and put a left foot clave in there just to keep things interesting. But basically, this is an easy way to work on different sections of a song now we've got it saved. So I'm going to play this and you can hear the black page as played by PolyNome. So I hope that gives you an idea of the kind of complex things you can do with PolyNome. It's a very powerful tool as well as being very simple and easy to use.